Okay, in this quick video, let's talk about retrowriting SX-64 keys. Or not. So what I do with 64 keys, they don't usually yellow. The part that yellows on the 64 keys is usually the space bar. So if I retrowrite anything, it's usually just the space bar. Otherwise, the keys. I pop out the keys just like, normal. You take out the chassis here, and there are two little tabs, and you just kind of squeeze the little tabs together inward, and that'll make the little key pop out. Okay, so in this board I already cleaned it and I already replaced the membrane. I've already got a video showing you how I've done that, so didn't want to go through all that. This is all about cleaning the keys, and it's very simple. I pop all the keys out, I leave the springs on, make sure that they're on, and you can see some of these keys are pretty nasty. Let me get some really bad ones here. Yeah, like this. Okay, and while you can go over these with cleaner, each and every key, what I like to do, these keys are pretty much all a mess. Okay, so what I like to do is I use the ultrasonic cleaner. So basically what I'm going to do is dump all of these keys, including the springs, everything in here. I will fill this little bag with a little bit of mean green and distilled water, not tap water, but distilled water. Oh, look at these. Look how ugly that key is. Look how bad these keys are. Okay. So I'm going to dump all of these in here, and then we're going to take these to the ultrasonic cleaner. I'm going to dump a little solution of mean green and some distilled water and leave it in the ultrasonic cleaner for about 7 minutes. Okay, so I'll meet you over there. Okay, so here we are in front of the ultrasonic cleaner. So the first thing I do is I put a little bit of this mean green, not too much, just a little bit of it in this little bag. And the reason for the bag is, one, I don't get dirt all over the cleanser, the ultrasonic cleaner, but the other is if anything comes out like the springs or any little thing, they're going to be trapped inside the bag. And the last thing is it's easier to rinse these things off later. So I put a little bit of mean green. And there's not much left in this bottle, so we'll do that. And then I fill up the remaining bag with distilled water. Okay, make sure all the pieces in there are underwater. Okay, then I heat up, well, I don't heat up, I take hot water from the faucet and I fill the container up to the appropriate water line. I do this because it saves time for the water to heat up using the ultrasonic cleaner. Okay. Make sure everything is below the water line. And we're going to leave this in here for about 7 minutes. Okay, so now that we're done with this, I'm going to take this and take the water out of here. This camera moved closer here. Okay, so I'm just going to unzip block it just a little bit, just to let some water out and not let the keys caps out. And then just dump the water in here. I plug the sink as well. And the reason I do that is to make sure that no springs came out of the keycaps, because these springs are a pain to find. You see the water's a little murky, which means the cleaner did its job. Okay, now I'm going to put this aside. You can reuse this a couple more times if you have other things that you need to clean at the same time. And just looking at this, these keys are beautiful. That cleaner did its job. No retro brighting here. I don't really like to retro bright SX-64 keys. So, alright, so now what I do is just mix in a little bit of distilled water again in here just to rinse it out a little bit more. You want to dry these right away also, because you don't want that mean green stuff, any film from that lingering. Okay. I don't see any springs or anything that fell out here, so I'll pull the plug on this. And let's get this on a towel so you can see what the end result was. Okay. I don't know if the camera picks this up well enough to do it justice, but these keys are white, white, white. I forgot which keys that we had looked at earlier that were kind of really messed up, but I think you can gather. I mean, I can pick up any one of these keys and you can see how beautiful they came out, nice and clean. Okay, so I'm going to let these sit here and kind of dry the insides out on their own, but I'm going to dry off the keycaps themselves. Again, I don't want to have any of that mean green film on here at all. And you can tell if it's on there, it's kind of a little pasty, a little thick film. So we're just going to dry these off and then we'll be back. Okay, I've dried them all, so we're going to just leave these overnight. You can see how nice and white they all came out. This looks really good. So also while I was drying them, I'm also looking to make sure they all still have the springs inside. These springs are very difficult to find. I have a DigiKey part for replacement springs, but they're not the same. They're not as springy, so to speak. They work, but they're just not as springy as these are. If that makes sense. But anyways, the springs are hard to find, so you don't want to really lose them. All right, so there we go. So let's get this thing back together after this all gets dried up, and we'll be right back and wrap this up. Stay tuned. Okay, so here's the final keyboard. Very, very nice and clean. Notice there's a key missing. So I figured, hey, what a good opportunity to add value to this video, right? That key that's missing is because when I went to plug it in, I found that it was off kilter. Turns out that the reason it was off kilter was two things. For one, there's a tab missing on the left hand side here. You can see on the right hand side where there's a tab. I don't know if you can kind of grab, there you go. And on the left hand side it's broken. So it wouldn't have been able to snap in completely. That's one. And after I got a replacement for this from another spare key, it still was kind of lopsided. And then I looked at it further and I saw that the little white plunger for it here was also missing a tab. Okay, you can see that there's the right hand side and the left hand side is kind of cut short. So this would have never worked. So I figured, well, here's a chance for me to show you what these keys consist of, the assembly of these keys. So basically, this is made up of two pieces. There's the white plunger, there's the base for the plunger, which is the black part, and then there's a spring underneath this plunger. So that's what this is. So this is the spring. Okay, and that would basically go into the base like that. And then this part here would slide in. You can, yep, well, there goes the spring. You can see the slots on each corner. So after the spring is in place, this would slide in. Okay, notice the spring here for the key cap. So that is what's usually lost because it's so small. But you see these two sides, there should be a tab on the other side, and they would slide into each corner. So you'd put the spring in, and then you'd slide this in, and it would snap into place with that spring underneath it. And then what you would get, once you do that, you would have this, which is the key mechanism. And then you basically will put the spring back in place like that, and you want to hear it snap in place. It will snap in place. Okay? And then the keycap, you can see there's two little slots here, and that's how you slide the keycap off. You can take like a little small screwdriver. Well, let me put this back together and you'll see what I mean. Okay. So you want to line up the slots with these little tabs there. Okay, just lost the spring. Okay, so you kind of pop it into place. Okay. You can pop the spring back on here. Okay, so there's your keycap. If you wanted to take the base out to fix this mechanism, you can use a little screwdriver and just kind of get underneath, underneath this white part here that snaps into the keycap itself. Just kind of get your screwdriver underneath there and just kind of pull it up just a little bit. Be careful not to mess up the cap, but if you kind of just pull up on the corners there, this will just kind of boop, slide out just like that. Okay, so hope that wasn't too convoluted. And so now we can put this key back in place. There we go. So it snaps in nicely and it's level with all the rest of the keys. Okay, so I guess I have a couple of springs to go hunting for. All right. So I think we're ready to just basically just wrap this up. I mean, I could just wrap it up right now. Obviously you saw you don't need any major retro brighting or anything for these keys. These keys are relatively easy to clean if you use the ultrasonic cleaner. And I showed you how to do that. So in 7 minutes in the cleaner, and they come out this bright and white. The only thing that you might want to retro bright, maybe, if you really wanted to, is the space bar. The space bar on these keyboards is notorious for getting yellowed. So of all the keys I've ever needed to retro bright, it's been only the space bar here, which is nice because you risk, kind of fading out some of the print, especially on the front. That's very light if you're not careful with the retro brighting process. All right, so that wraps this up. Hope you got something out of it, and stay tuned for a bigger video coming up. Yeah, you know what? We received this back part of this. It's broken. I'm not going to go through the restoration on this. This is going to take some real work to do. The corner's missing. That's how I get these things typically. Here's a side piece of it. Because when people ship, they don't protect the keyboard, and it's fragile, and this thing weighs a ton. And the last one I got here, the handle was broken. So if you're going to ship these out, man, you really need to pull the handle up. Don't put it in front of the computer. Prop it all the way back and then you know, put bubble wrap along the whole thing. Take the keyboard off and put bubble wrap along the whole thing, and then package the keyboard separate in a separate box with bubble wrap. And I guarantee, well, I can't guarantee anything, but I can assure you that you have a better odds of your computer being where it needs to go in a one-piece fashion rather than being broken up and splintered up like this was. All right. So like I always say, live today like it's your last. Life is short, and it goes by pretty fast. So, all right. Peace out.